What is one thing that surprised you the most after getting into a relationship?
It's not one thing. I could give you a whole list.
Hi, I'm Yue Xu.
And I'm Julie Kraftchick.
We're active daters turned dating sociologists.
Here to dive into everything modern dating and relationships.
Welcome to the DATEABLE podcast.
Before we get into this episode, a quick word from our sponsors that make it possible. Did you know we're eating and drinking roughly a credit card's worth of plastic a week? Yep, that's right. Blue Land set out to do something about it, eliminate the need for single-use plastic in the cleaning products we reach for the most. I'm absolutely obsessed with Blue Land for a couple of reasons. One, how they're helping the environment. Two, how convenient they make my life. And three, how freaking beautiful their pastel containers are. All you have to do is fill your reusable bottles with water, drop in the tablets, and wait for them to dissolve. You'll never have to grab bulky cleaning products on your groceries run again. My partner was a little skeptical the other day if the dishwasher tablets would work as well as the pods we usually use, but after the dishes came out sparkling clean, he was sold as well. It's not only super convenient, but Blue Land is also affordable. Refills start at just $2.25, and you can even set up a subscription or buy in bulk for additional savings. Blue Land has a special offer for listeners. Right now, get 15% off your first order by going to blueland.com/dateable. You won't want to miss this. Blueland.com/dateable for 15% off. That's blueland.com/dateable to get 15% off.
How much do you love your dog? A lot, right? So you definitely want the best for their health, and there's no doubt about that. But did you know that the cause of many dogs' health issues is their food? That is why actress Katherine Heigl, who's helped save over 16,000 dogs through her foundation, created something she could actually feel good about feeding her dogs. It's called Superfood Complete. It's made with over 30 of the healthiest ingredients on the planet, including several superfoods vital to your dog's health. I actually love giving Mojo this as a topper. He's extra enthusiastic about mealtime these days. And I feel good that there are no fillers and it's air dried, so it retains more nutrients. Dogs across America are trying this food and experiencing amazing health benefits. And so can your fur baby. Go to badlandsranch.com/dateable and order right now to get up to 50% off your regular price order with a 90-day money-back guarantee. If you want your dog to experience all these incredible things, go to badlandsranch.com/DATEABLE today. Hello, friends.
Welcome back to another episode of Dateable.
But it's not just any other episode.
It's our 500th. 500th. That's crazy.
Like, it takes you a while to even count to 500. Like, you have to sit there a while, right?
Yeah.
And that's how long we've been doing this for. It's a while.
So you weren't in the session with me, but when we went to podcast movements, Yue and I broke up for a few sessions to maximize our time. There was one and they were like, raise your hand if you've done 100 episodes. Raise your hand if you've done 200. And then my hand somehow was the last one with like 400 at the time. So not everyone makes it to 500.
We are OGs. We are cranking them out. I still remember when we got to 100 episodes and I thought, wow, we'll probably stop at 2.
And then we just stopped counting completely.
That crossed my mind. Yeah. I did encounter when we hit 300 episodes because we did something I think we posted something on that. And I remember thinking, how long ago was this? It's been a while.
It has. We were completely different people when we started in 2016.
Sure were.
We were clueless daters ourselves.
Yep. But we were also almost a decade younger.
What do you mean? We haven't aged a bit, right?
For many of you who've been along for the ride, you know the story. But if you are newer to the podcast, it's important to point out that we started this podcast wanting to figure out how people navigated dating. Because we were at such an interesting point in the dating scene where apps were really taking over at the time.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like a free-for-all. Everyone's trying to figure out how to make online dating work for them. So we were interviewing our friends of friends to figure out what they were doing. And these were fun, interesting stories. And here we are 500 episodes later, going deeper, having more profound takeaways and not just fun stories, which we still love. Don't get us wrong.
I mean, at the core of it, the reason why we did it, of course, we were curious how the world dated, but you and I were both struggling ourselves.
Right.
I hate to be like, oh, it's self-serving, but let's be honest, that's usually where people start things, right? It's something that's a pain point for themselves a lot of times. And
Yeah.
I remember I was like fresh out of a breakup where I thought like the person was the one. You were brand new to the city, like ready to take on dating, and felt like it was culture shock.
Mm-hmm.
So we were both coming in at very interesting points of our dating, I guess, journeys, not to be cliche. And we were both like, what the F is going on? We need some answers.
And this is a time when there weren't that many podcasts out there,
No.
especially about dating. So we got picked up by some major local press at the time. And that press helped me get a date with my crush. I still remember.
My God.
I still owe it to Dateable.
I forgot about that.
It was a guy I've been crushing on for so long, and I never really pursued it. And he saw us mentioned in a local publication at the time, right?
Yeah.
An email newsletter. And he reached out and was like, let's grab drinks and talk about your podcast.
Because he wanted to make a podcast, right?
Right. Yeah. It was like, I'm also thinking about making a podcast. Let's meet up for drinks. And then I ended up in a makeout sesh and made all my dreams come true for one night. I was like, thank you, Dateable.
It's just like, it is crazy to think about where we were. I mean, part of like why we're doing the episode today, the truth about relationships, is because we have learned so much over these years. And I think like my idea of a relationship at that stage was very different than maybe the realities of it. And I feel like this is like one of those topics that like no one wants to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Because like your friends, for instance, like don't want to share anytime it's hard because there's always that like fear that like you'll judge their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the movies. It's like once you get together, once the dating part, that hardship is over. Just no one talks about it. It's over. It's done. You've achieved your goal.
Right. There's this image of people in relationships being on this island. And all the single people are swimming, trying to get to shore. But nobody's talking about the monsters on this island. They're just like, come on, everybody, save yourselves. Come to Relationship Island. And you get to the island. You're dry. You're safe, you're warm and comfortable, and then you start discovering some monsters that may appear.
We're going to get real on this episode if you can't tell already by where it's going. But the goal is not to discourage people from relationships. I don't want to speak for you, Yue, fully, but like for me, I'm still very pro relationships. I think they're one of the greatest gifts out there. We all want you to have your great relationship. I think though, like sometimes if you don't know the realities, you can think something's wrong when it's not really wrong. So this is more helping to like make things more like the norm and, you know, standardize some of the challenges of relationships a little more.
Yeah, we just have to talk about it more. We talk about the sharks in the ocean when you're single.
Yes.
Everybody openly talks about how hard dating is, but nobody talks about the monsters on the island. That's what I want to bring to light is that there's good and bad to both states of being, but the main point is it's just a state of being. It's not better, it's not worse. Let's not qualify it with anything other than it is a phase in your life.
So when we started this podcast, I would absolutely say that dating was harder than relationships, not having been in that many long-term relationships. We did run a poll on Instagram. It's not to say there's only a stack ranking. It has to be dating or relationships, but we're just trying to do this to get, you know, more of the extremes. But we wanted to ask people, like, what's the hardest? Is it dating? Is it being in relationships? Or is it being alone?
I like that you separated out dating and being alone.
I think they are different, right?
Yeah.
Because I think like dating, it's like when I think of dating, it's like going through the motions of being on apps or meeting people in the wild and like actively going on dates, where being alone, it's either not much is going on in that dating world, or there's just the struggle of the downtime.
And if you saw this poll, it means you're already following us. But just a little reminder, if you want to take more of polls like this, you can follow us on Instagram at Dateable Podcast or be in our Facebook group, Big Dateable Energy. You can find us on Facebook. Just a little plug there. But when I saw this poll, I will tell you, I chose relationships.
Yeah, I saw that you were like one of the first people to respond. It's like, we got one. Oh, it's you, eh?
Damn it. She doesn't count.
We actually did get a lot for this one. This one was an interesting one. You were just on it.
Which one did you pick?
So I didn't actually vote, but I wasn't part of the poll. But, I think I'm mixed on this one. I would say I still think dating is harder. I think that relationships, there are some, if you're in a good relationship, if you're in a bad relationship, that's a whole different story. I'd say that's probably the hardest. But if you're in a good relationship, there are times that are certainly challenging. I'm not diminishing that. But I think there's a lot that balances out those times where dating, at least for me, it felt like something I wasn't achieving and like this constant hardship when I was like in that mode. Once I was able to like change my mindset, it became a lot easier. Why did you pick relationships?
Because you're accountable for someone else too. It's not just about you.
Yeah.
You have to think about them, their feelings, their life. It's a lot harder to just pick up your shit and change your life when you have someone deeply ingrained in your life too.
Yeah, I think it might come down to also like what is the part that's hard for you? You're like very highly independent, so I could see that being challenging for you. Where like, I don't know, I think for me, there was like the validation aspect of like being single that really got me.
But we're both saying is being alone is the easiest.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I would fully say that, but that actually was what the poll said. It's interesting because when it was first going up, this one was in the front runner position. Oh. But then by the end, it was 50% for dating of what's the hardest, relationships 34%, being alone 16%.
Definitely very low there.
Everything comes with challenges. I mean, I think that's just at the end of the day, like we have to also reframe what hard is and that it's not always a bad thing, that often the hardest things in life are the most worthwhile.
Yeah.
I would say that anyone that starts a business or has kids, that's all pretty freaking hard, right? It's not like that you shouldn't do it because it's hard.
Hard is not necessarily a bad thing.
Totally.
But you know what is hard is meeting people in real life.
Good segue. I think everyone would agree with it. Yeah.
We hear that from everyone. It's so hard to meet people out and about. How do you just strike up a conversation with a stranger when you're at a bar and everyone's on their phone? How do you talk to people?
We also just hear that it's hard to meet people on apps this day and age, and people are really struggling and wanting another outlet, but they don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. They don't know, how to manage their time, because if you're just going out all the time, that can also be freaking exhausting. So we've been hearing people talk about this for a while. Anytime we do content related to how to meet people IRL, always super popular. So Yue and I really wanted to put together, we're calling it a masterclass. It'll take about an hour to do the class. And what we're really trying to do here is to, one, help you really figure out what the right place is for you to meet people in real life. And then sharing tips, best practices, all the stuff we've gathered in our years of doing Dateable, and then help you out with being approachable and then also approaching and giving you the tools to go to the right places, but also be in the right place.
Right.
So you can actually meet people in real life.
And this is also part of our celebration for 500 episodes of Dateable, putting everything into one masterclass, demystifying meeting people IRL. It feels like it's so enigmatic to meet someone out and about. Like, how do you do it? What do you say? Is there a code you can crack? Well, we are going to crack that code for you. And we've been teasing this for a while. So here's the payoff. This masterclass is live. It's called Meeting People IRL. We are launching this May 29th, and it's going to be live until June 5th. So that's the last day you can sign up for this masterclass.
And you can find it all on our website, dateablepodcast.com. Go there, sign up. This is a good intro into some of our programs too. It's a lower time commitment, a lower cost. We're trying to like bridge the gap and meet people where they're at as well with some of the things that matter the most to them.
And if you're still listening, we have a gift for you. We have a special
Yeah.
discount for all of our listeners. If you use the code DATEABLE, DATEABLE, you'll get a special discount just for you.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited to hear the people that do the masterclass, like where they're actually meeting people and how being in the wild is going.
Being in the wild.
So mystifying.
It's so funny. It's like, be careful out there in the wild. No, y'all will be just fine. You're going around the block. That's it.
You will be. Okay. Well, before we go into the truths about relationships, what you and I've learned from doing Dateable 500 episodes and being in long-term relationships, we're going to get into all of that. But before we do, let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors.
Living with ADHD can be a challenge, and dating with ADHD is definitely a challenge. We've heard many of you say, but finding the right care and proper tools needed to succeed can be life-changing. Done is an online ADHD care platform that can get you all the resources you need to help manage your ADHD. Unlock your path to better focus with Done. Take a free 1-minute assessment and book an appointment with a licensed ADHD clinician as soon as the next day. Get continuous care, insurance coverage, and 24/7 care team support and pharmacy copays as low as $0. And because May is Mental Health Awareness Month, you can get 50% off your first consultation. That's just $99. Visit get.donefirst.com/podcast before the end of the month to take advantage of this deal. That's get.donefirst.com/podcast. Done. Turn ADHD into strength.
Spring is in the air, and you know what adds an extra spring to my step? Our partners at Via Hemp. Need to chill out after a long day? There's a Via gummy for that. Dealing with anxiety or stress? There's a gummy for that too. Want to set the mood in the bedroom? There's a gummy for that called High Love. Via also carries a wide array of other gummies with and without THC, ranging from 0 to 100 milligrams. I've been struggling to stay focused lately, so I was excited to try out their Flow State gummies. These felt like a good bet to me too, because they were non-psychoactive and THC free. But they definitely delivered, boosting my daily energy and focus. So whether you're a 2 milligram or a 50 milligram user, you can shop through their website for any strength and effects. So head to Via Hemp and use the code DATEABLE to receive 15% off and one free sample of their award-winning gummies. 21 plus. That's VIIA hemp.com and use the code DATEABLE at checkout. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Take your passion and pleasure to a whole new level with High Love from Via Hemp. So do you think relationships are inherently hard or they should be easy? So I feel like we've had this debate on this podcast and we've heard from various experts. I'm curious, like your takeaway, like after everything we've learned and what we've been through.
I personally feel like relationships are inherently hard because it's still two strangers coming together to merge their lives with two different upbringings, two different brains, two different belief systems. It would be very rare to get two people who are on the exact same page together, attracted to each other, and decide to be in a relationship together. I've never heard of anything like that happening.
I agree. Unless you're not stating your needs at all, and you're just seeing each other just for fun, it's hard to get to the point where there's never going to be any conflict or anything that comes to the surface that feels different.
Yeah.
I think there's a difference too of it being hard 99% of the time versus like that expected hard.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're constantly trying to like push someone forward that just isn't willing to be pushed, or you're the only one exerting energy and effort into it, that's a different hard than what you were bringing up of just the naturalness of two people with different perspectives, ways of being, doing life together.
Yeah. And I think this is a theme we're going to be discussing throughout the rest of this episode. Is striking a balance in a relationship is probably the hardest thing. Striking a balance between, oh, my feelings are hurt, or I feel like I'm not being heard, so I'm going to express myself, versus this is not the right relationship for me and I'm trying too
Totally.
hard, right? There's such a balance. And part of what's so beautiful and scary about relationships is that you're putting your heart on the line. So in
Oh,
some ways, it should feel hard because you're invested. But in other ways, you are exposing yourself to the potential for hurt.
well, I think the more you get invested in someone, at least for me, that's where it gets harder.
Yeah.
Like, I think dating, there was always this feeling of like, what if I end up alone forever? And honestly, I got to a point that I'm like, I don't even care if that is. But like, there
Yeah.
was a period that was very hard for me, that constant battle of not getting what I wanted. But I think in relationships, what's hard is you get confronted a lot with your own shit that hasn't been fully healed.
Mhm.
Like you think it has, and then it rises. I think the ability to be triggered for me is a lot more in a relationship because, at least personally, I got to a point that I was like, someone ghosted me. That sucks. Not the best, but I'm over it. I don't know this person. I went out with them for an hour. But when it's like your partner, like your long term partner, does something that's triggering, because that will happen, it can really, really get under you, I think.
And maybe that's partly why we don't talk about relationships that much, is because by you exposing what's hard in your relationship, you're also exposing your vulnerabilities.
Mm-hmm.
I think about my last relationship. The contentious moment we had was about marriage because he was married before. He didn't know if he wanted that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And we went through a really rough period where I didn't feel like I was confident enough in expressing this to my friends because I didn't want to reveal the weakness of me seeking
Yes.
validation through
Yes.
marriage.
Right.
I wanted to be the girl that's like, I don't need marriage. I don't need commitment. I don't need, but I did. I still wanted that from him.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to expose that part of me to people who weren't in the relationship.
It's hard too, because like I've been here too when like friends share things about their relationships. Like it's easy to go into the mode of like, oh, that person's not right for them, or like they're not being treated well,
Yes.
because you're only hearing one side. You're also only hearing maybe the challenges, because they're not going to be like, everything in my relationship's great. Let me call up my best friend and share that with them, right?
Right.
So it's a
Right.
very like one-sided aspect. So I think that part almost makes people hesitant to share too when things aren't going smoothly in their relationship. Where dating, it's like, maybe I'm probably never going to see this person again. Might as well tell my friends about it.
Yeah, there's like an entertainment aspect to
Yeah.
the challenges you face in dating. It's kind of amusing, but the relationship issues people face are so freaking real. It's not like you can really laugh about it. It's not just a story.
Yeah, and we're not trying to like diminish the hardness of dating.
Right,
Like we established earlier, everything's hard and that's okay.
Yes.
And this is too.
Yes.
I think what we're saying is that relationships can really bring up some stuff for you, as dating can too, but it doesn't stop at dating. That's maybe the message. It continues in a different way.
Yes, we're just trying to normalize the conversation around relationships since we're so open about talking about our dating lives. This is also why I think it's sometimes surprising we find out about our favorite couples breaking up.
Yeah.
Because everyone loves to give the IG versions of their relationships.
Yes.
Because, we don't want to expose the weaknesses. And also, you also don't want to be so gossipy, like, oh, guess what's happening with me and my relationship. But we all know, like, we have no idea what's happening in any relationship behind closed doors.
I'm curious for you, Yue, like what your biggest kind of like aha moment is for relationships once you were in more serious relationships. I think for me, this relationship I'm in now is by far the most serious relationship I've been in.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in relationships, but they've always been before, but they were never like doing life with someone. There was always turmoil and like the ups and downs and not knowing what was going to happen. And that was really hard in the sense that like I just knew it wasn't right and like the relationship wasn't working. But what I didn't realize was even in like the most healthy relationships, there is this hardness of being confronted and taking things really personally. And I think you expect to, like, when I, list out all my needs in a partner, like I'll find that person and then we'll go into the sunset together and everything will be great. and like they can meet my needs. But then I didn't realize like I would be triggered in different ways and like things would come up. And of course it makes sense. Like they're human. You're living with this person. Like, of course they're not going to be perfect all the time. And I read somewhere like you can experience like mini hurt and almost like the pain of breakups without breaking up, but within relationships. And I think I always thought like, oh, that's reserved for the bad relationships. But what I realized is like even the healthiest, even the best relationships, it happens.
Even you saying that is sometimes you could have doubts about your relationship.
Right.
Even in the healthiest relationship.
Right.
Let's get real about that. And when you hang on to the identity of being in a healthy relationship, you're that much harder on yourself.
Yes.
When the relationship is not that smooth. You're like, wait, but I thought we were in a healthy relationship.
Right.
You know, we shouldn't be in this spot right now. And I think that's part of like the unnecessary pressure we all put on relationships. And sometimes that is what spirals a relationship. A major surprise for me. So my last relationship was the third person I've lived with. And up until the last relationship, I really thought this is how relationships work. You take the learnings from the last relationship and then you make them better in your now relationship. And you iterate on it. And then if this doesn't work, you just take the learnings from this relationship and apply to the next one. It is so not linear like that. Every relationship has its unique set of beautiful things and not so beautiful things. And some of these problems are different. And I can't say, oh, in my last relationship, I learned about communicating my needs in bed is going to be applicable to this relationship.
Right.
You still have to be intentional about the communication, respect, the mutual understanding. It's not like it's just a given because you've been through other relationships.
100%. And I think in some ways things build on each other and you learn, but you can't expect like everything to just be that linear. And it kind of reminds me of that conversation that we had about the saboteurs a long time ago. And it was like the things that attract you to someone end up annoying you in the long run.
Yes.
But if it's not that thing, like it will be something else with someone.
It'll be something else.
Yeah, like it's never going to be perfect. And it kind of like I wanted to, well, first of all, maybe this is a call out to have him on our podcast because we have reached out to Todd Baratz, who's like, you know, pretty big on Instagram. He's a therapist, but he writes a lot about this. It's Your Nonsense is his handle for anyone that doesn't know him. So if you know him, tell him we'd love to have him on.
Please.
We can talk about this in much more depth. I've like sent many of his quotes to my partner because I think he just hits it so dead on. And there was like one quote from him that was like, no matter how many boxes someone checks, you will always choose someone that in the end frustrates you. We all end up with our unfinished business and create dynamics that result in a reenactment of our earlier stuff. And I was just like, shit. True. Yeah, like everyone is going to frustrate you, but you think like, oh, I met that person. They're going to be amazing. And then when they do frustrate you, your mind goes to something's wrong.
You know, I used to think, well, if I'm with a partner who's more suitable for me, then I wouldn't be having this conflict with them. And
that still goes through my mind sometimes.
I think it's so natural to think that, right? With my old partner, I used to be like, if someone truly loved me, they wouldn't have this conversation about marriage. They would just beeline for marriage. And no, that's not how it works. It's like the next person who may check off this box is going to have something else that's going to frustrate the shit out of you. And we'd have to be so realistic about that. Nobody is like this romanticized version of what you want in your head.
Yeah, I want to read one more of his and then of course people can go find him. But like he wrote another one that was like the honeymoon phase will end and it will be followed by disappointment and disillusionment. Don't freak out. This is normal. This is the actual start of your relationship. Maybe even a milestone to be celebrated.
Yes, my friend forwarded that one to me after her breakup. She's like, how can someone send this to my ex? But yeah, I think some people live for the honeymoon period and it becomes shocking when that ends. It becomes so shocking to your system that you're like, what happened to the warm and fuzzies and the flush of emotions? That's so normal. That's called reality.
Yeah. I mean, he also talks about a lot too, like how you'll have bad days, bad weeks, bad months, disappointments, annoyances, even hatred he had in one of them.
Yep.
What I like about this though is it does normalize
Yes.
that like it's not 100% all the time. Like I had a friend of ours, UA, that's like kind of, dating someone right now and trying to figure it out. And she's
Hmm.
like, well, I'm just going to like make sure that everything aligns 100%. I was like, if that's
Yeah.
the goal, you're not going to be with them.
Hmm.
Like there's no way it's ever going to align 100%.
No. And if you expect that to happen in a relationship, you're really in for some major disappointment.
Just go back to dating or being alone. Like honestly, that's what I've
Right?
learned.
Because you're with someone who's constantly changing. Your relationship is constantly evolving. You may match everything up today. You have no control over what tomorrow is going to bring.
Yeah.
And a good relationship is going to have the foundation to welcome whatever changes come your way. But if you're just so resting on today, like everything's perfect today, oh man, I've been there. Like, but how come? Let's get it back to where we were in the beginning. No, that's not how it works.
So call out to Todd if anyone knows him, share it, have him come on our podcast.
Yes.
Any other truths that you think from going through it?
Can we normalize the word boring? I think relationships are
Yes.
inherently hard and boring.
Yes.
Okay. And boring, maybe not in the negative sense. I don't want to be with a partner where it's constant excitement. That is, wow, that
No,
sounds overwhelming.
You're on a roller coaster at that point. That's like the situationship, the on again, off again relationship that you never know what's going to happen. If it's an actual healthy partnership, it can be freaking boring.
Yes. Because you're at an equilibrium. You are at ease. You are peaceful. Those are beautiful words to describe a relationship, not the ups and downs, not the one day I'm in love and the next day I'm not in love. It's let's just like normalize boring. Boring is good.
It kind of reminds me of the episode that we did a couple weeks ago with Ryan Van Duzer about like, is everyone cut out for a long-term relationship? And I think being in love and being in a relationship are actually two very different things.
Yeah.
It's not that you can't have love in a relationship, absolutely, but the mundane aspect of relationships, it's not for everyone.
Yes.
Or people think it's not the right person because that's what it ends up feeling like.
On that note, I don't know if you feel this way, but I know this is how I feel now, is there are moments where I'm flushed with the emotion of like gratitude and love for my partner.
Absolutely.
And there are days where I feel nothing from my partner. Like even I'm like, oh, I do love him, right? I do love him. I'll be trying to get that feeling back. It's hard to will it back because some days I'm not in the headspace to like fully love this person with my entire being.
Interesting.
Not every day do I feel this overwhelming love for my partner. Have I ever felt a daily overwhelming love for a partner on a consistent basis?
I feel like I maybe differ from you on this one
Okay.
a little. Because I know you've mentioned this before. And I think what you're saying is 100% normal and normalize. So I'm not saying it like I disagree with you. I think for me, I agree with the waves. Like it comes and goes. I don't know if I've ever felt like the extreme, like I don't feel that love right this minute or anything like that. But I do think what happens is like sometimes I'll just get in the mode of other parts of life a little more.
Right.
And I'm not like in a lovey-dovey state at all times. And yeah, of course, like if I feel triggered by something that was said or like there's some overarching challenge happening, it's not that I don't feel love for my partner, but I don't feel like the giddy sense of love because I'm like going through shit.
Right.
So I think it's, yes, normalized in the sense it's not going to be like rainbows and butterflies every day. But I think maybe for different people, it comes through in different ways.
So back to my friend's experience of this ex saying basically like the love had stalled. There was no more love to be felt in that relationship. And to some degree, I'm like, okay, maybe that is a good reason to leave a relationship. Yeah. And to another degree, I'm like, I don't really know if this love exponentially grows all the time. I think it expands, like you could find more aspects of your partner to love, but I can't imagine loving someone exponentially to the point where my heart is exploding like every day. Hearing him say that to her, I just thought like, I think there's a level of disillusionment there about relationships.
Like unrealistic. I think too, it like sometimes peaks in the honeymoon period. And it's
Yes.
not going to just like keep growing. I mean, it grows in different ways. I think
In
it
different
becomes like a
ways.
more secure, a more gentle, but the excitement, like love we think of falling in love, like that is not going to keep rising all the time.
Yes. Another truth is I think a relationship does not fulfill everything in your life.
No, absolutely not.
I love the idea of having my partner as a best friend, but not the best friend. Like they are definitely someone I trust and want to spend a lot of time with, but they cannot fulfill the role of every friend I have and every support system I have.
Yeah, I just think it's unrealistic. Like, I think when you think about it with even friends, like there's certain people you go to for certain things. So when you put so much
Yeah.
pressure on one person to be everything, they're going to fall short. Like that's inevitable.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens sometimes in relationships is I really try to like hang out with friends a lot because it's very important to me. But I admit, like, I still find myself maybe reaching out less and doing less than
Yeah.
I did when I was single. So you get comfortable and it's easy. But I think it's something to remember that you're not going to get all your happiness from one person. It's just impossible.
No. And you don't want them getting all their happiness from you either. That's a lot of pressure on you.
Absolutely. I think the truth that I'm realizing is it's like it's not always going to be good all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I'm thinking about this from hearing like, you know, stories of some of my friends have been married for a long time. It's not just even, I'm 3 years in. It's really not that long in the scheme of things. But it's like one of those things I think about a lot is like, what if we hit a time that it's not good?
Mm-hmm.
And you hear about this in couples, right? It's like
Yeah.
if you're with someone for 30 years plus, like not every day
know.
and every month, like if you're growing in different ways. And I think the question that still like remains kind of like to your point about your friend, it's like at what point do you realize like this is just part of relationships versus I'm genuinely not happy? And I don't know if we'll solve that on this episode, but that's something I think about a lot is like, what is that balance?
Well, when we were doing couples counseling, the XX and I were doing group couples counseling, there was a couple in there who had been together for 20 years, had been married for 20 years, and they wanted to come to group because they felt like they didn't know each other anymore. They were trying to get reacquainted with each other, even though they've been married for 20 years. So what I learned from them was you have to keep re-meeting your partner.
Yes. You have to keep dating too.
Yeah. Like you can't just assume they are the same person as who you met in the beginning. You have to keep trying to learn more about them.
Right. Especially if you're having like kids and starting a family, like the life you're living together is very different than when you were like going out on dates and like that early life. And it's never going to be exactly the same. But I think like sometimes we lose that stuff and we lose track of like who this person is today, or we expect them to be the person that they were when you met them and hold on to that. I think maybe that's the overarching is like the fluidity of like things can change within a relationship. You can have many relationships within the one relationship.
And that goes back to the balance that we talked about earlier. It's like on one hand, what you want in a relationship is like, you want to know your partner so well. You want to be like that person who's like, oh, I knew he would do that. Or I knew that this is something he would like. That's so wonderful. But then you also have to strike the balance of being open to learning something new about them and having your partner surprise you and that maybe you didn't know everything about them.
Yeah, I think this is like the stage I'm in right now is that like we've been together long enough that I feel like I should know everything that's going through my partner's mind and all that. So we've kind of stopped asking more questions, but it's actually given some friction and not like major issues, but like example, the other day I was not feeling well. So I said like, I actually don't want to go on a hike on Saturday because I haven't been feeling well all week. When Saturday rolled around, I was feeling much better, but not to the point of like going on a hike, but I didn't need to sit at home necessarily. So to me, I was like, oh, like, do you want to go to a movie? Like, let's do that, you know, and go to the park, go to a movie. And then like, as we're going through the day, like he was like, kind of like, wait, we're going to do something else. Like, I thought you were like not feeling well and like you want to take it easy. And like, I had in my mind that like, this was going to be like a chill day. And then for me, I was like, this is a chill day. But like, it was one of those things like we communicate, like, do you want to do it? It's not like I was like, I forced you to go to the movies. but like the expectations were off because we were both just like inferring on the other person.
Yes, that's such a great example. I feel like that's such a common example because you are projecting your assumptions about your partner onto your
Yeah.
partner and they're doing the same back to you. And in the end, it's like, what do you really want to do?
Maybe this actually brings me to something that was mind-blowing for me in relationships is
Mm,
what conflict actually means. Because I think that actually is
hmm
conflict. When
Yep.
I was before a relationship, I thought conflict was like the heated argument and the fights and yelling at each other and like duking it out, not just, anything that doesn't jive like 100%. I
Yeah.
think we have like mini conflicts all the time in relationships. And it's not just fights. And like, I actually feel like I don't think ever we've really yelled at each other. Like, that's not the fights that happen with my partner. But that doesn't mean
hmm
there's no conflict.
It's so true. Like the C word, like, oh, a conflict. C word is good. Conflict is good. It means that you are learning something new about your partner. It's just part of the process of being in a relationship. I think a lot of conflict, too, that I've seen in my relationships is a product of both of us trying to please each other without asking each other what they
Yes, you
actually
think that.
want. You're
Yes.
like, "Oh, I'm doing this because I thought you'd be happy," or "This is what you
Right.
would want." They're also doing something because they think you would be happy about it, when in the end, none of you are happy because you're being resentful or whatever. And my partner currently has this thing where he's like so self-sacrificing sometimes, where he's like, "Oh, I have something really stressful tomorrow, but you and I are spending the day together today. So I'm not going to think about it. I don't want to deal with it. It's tomorrow." Yet is weighing down on him. I can feel it. Like I can feel the anxiety and stress
Yeah.
on him. So he's trying to please me because he's like, "Oh, we
Right.
said we would spend time together." And I'm trying to please him because I'm like, "Why don't you, take some time for yourself and de-stress and whatever." In the end, my learning is just take care of yourself. Tell me what you need. Take care of yourself. In that moment, I said, "You know what would make me really happy is I go get a massage, and maybe you should too." Like I'm going to do something really not stressful, and maybe you should too, and let's reconvene in a few hours. So just take care of yourself. Don't try to please your partner all the time.
Yes. I want to get into more of these because there's so much to unpack here. But before we do, let's take a quick message to hear from our sponsors.
Hey, do you ever look at your closet and think you have nothing to wear? Or is it just me? It's not just me, right? This is why I can't believe I didn't discover Armoire clothing rentals earlier. With an Armoire membership, I can now build the perfect wardrobe with high-quality brands that I wouldn't normally think I could afford, such as Philip Lim, Monique Lhuillier, and Marni. Doesn't it just sound fancy? To get started, all you have to do is take a 5-minute style quiz and select items from your dynamic, personalized closet. The styles show up at your door in as little as 2 days. And then when you're ready for new clothes, boom, swap them out for more new-to-you styles. I recently rented a pale lime green leather blazer from Alice and Olivia. You may have seen it on our Instagram stories. I am obsessed. It's so perfect if you're like me who doesn't want to spend all that time putting together a look, but also loves looking stylish. Right now, our listeners can give Armoire a try and get up to 50% off their first month. That's up to $125 off. Just visit armoire.style/dateable. That is armoire.style. That's spelled ARMOIRE.style/DATEABLE to get up to 50% off your first month and never worry about what to wear again. Try Armoire today.
If you love Dateable, we have a podcast you have to check out. Seeing Other People was created to help you feel less alone and more empowered by your dating life. Hosted by your soon-to-be favorite internet big sis, Alana Dunn, an early Hinge employee, modern dater, and now a fiance, is here to guide you through whatever you're going through. And she covers the gamut of topics, from anti-dating rules, how she went from being an anxious dater to in a secure, healthy relationship, and navigating dating burnout. On Tuesdays, Alana brings on expert guests like dating coaches, matchmakers, psychologists, and more. And on Thursdays, Alana is joined by anonymous real-life daters who bear it all and open up about what they've faced in their love lives and what they wish they knew going through it. Seeing Other People will help you change your dating mindset, develop healthy dating habits, and make you feel like you actually can find what you're looking for. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and tune in every Tuesday and Thursday. Okay, what else do we got?
The balance thing. How do you work on your communication, the foundations of your relationship, work on getting to know each other, but also keeping it fun and flirty, right? Still like
Yes.
having that romance. So it doesn't feel like you're going to class every day
Yeah.
about relationships.
Yeah, I remember you saying that on one of our episodes, like with your ex, like by the end, it felt like all you were doing is working on the relationship.
Yes. That should have been a sign right there. It was no longer fun. We had assignments and everything
Yeah.
was an opportunity to communicate and to deepen our
Yeah.
connection. But what about just like chilling or
Doing
like
it.
just
Yeah.
having sex,
Right.
just like straight up mindless shit that you love doing in a relationship? There has to be a balance. And I think that's one of the hardest balances to strike.
Yeah, I think it's so true because in dating, it's like all of that. And then at a certain point with relationships, like if you're getting to a deeper level or you're getting to different life stages, it does get a little more serious. And I think if you're ignoring the serious things, then that's just probably sacrificing needs and not being realistic either. But like, yeah, how do you get that balance? Because it can't just be all work and no play either.
Right. Yeah. And I had a friend who was with someone, he was with this woman for a year and they had a really fun relationship. They would go to music festivals and they would do drugs and have so much fun. And every weekend they had something planned. And from the outside, you're like, wow, these two are just having a ton of fun together. And at the end of the year, this year relationship, she said she was wanting to move to a different country to be close to her family. And their relationship just blew up. They had no foundation to handle this sort of change. So they just broke up
Right.
overnight. It wasn't even a discussion. She just said, hey, I'm thinking about moving back home to this other country to be closer to my family. And he's like, bye.
Well, that's why there has to be some of the work put in. There needs to be a
Yes.
creation. And, I think at the end of the day, it's one of the truths I've learned too, is like you really need both people to be fully in it and committed
Yes.
to making it work. Because the second that doesn't happen, that's when it falls apart because it can't just be one person doing the work. I think if things are off track, the commitment of just like, can we commit to just get it back on track?
Yes.
That's all like there needs to be.
Yeah, that's the baseline. Both people have to subscribe to the relationship, like opt in, right? Not just like, no, you handle all that shit and I'm just going to sit back. It would never work that way.
I think the other thing that's come up a lot for me, it's like we're always told like communication is everything in relationships. And I do think it is. I'm not saying it's not. But I actually think more than communication is conflict, like how you deal with conflict. But even more than that is how do you repair from that?
Yes.
That was something I learned in couples therapy of the importance of the repair. Like what happens after the conflict? So I think if you sweep it under the rug or you like say you're sorry, but it doesn't feel that way deep down, like you need to make sure that you're building from the conflict and like growing closer after every issue that comes up instead of it deteriorating your relationship.
Oh, this is why I think we're starting relationships all wrong. We think the DTR is like this declaration of commitment. We're going to be with each other exclusively, and now we have labels. I think the DTR should be an operating agreement. This is how we operate together. This is how we're going to deal with conflict. This is how we're going to celebrate each other. This is how we're going to handle challenging times. Like, let's talk about how we're going to deal with the shit when the shit hits the fan, and then how we're going to support each other during the good times and the bad times.
Yeah.
Why don't we have these conversations during the DTR?
And sometimes, though, you need the relationship to play out.
True.
Like you can't have the conversation, but that's maybe where communication comes in. I think like we think of it as like we're sitting down and talking about the relationship or talking about where it's going to go or, asking questions about the other person. I think the hardest part of communicating is when you're triggered.
Yes.
And you need to share how it's making you feel and what you want it to come from that.
Yes.
Like I was really triggered the other night and I was really struggling to state my needs in any way that made sense.
But at least you know that. You know that was a little abnormal, right?
Yeah.
And You can recognize that.
And it got there. I think that's the part with the repair that, like, one of the things that I love about my relationship is that, like, we have these moments because every relationship does. But after the moments, we feel better about the connection. We feel stronger. We feel more like a team and a unit. And I think that's the part that, like, makes me believe, like, this is the person that I want to be with because of that type of thing.
Yeah, you are constantly striving for better together. You know you're in it together. That's such a key belief to hold on to in a relationship. You don't want your partner to be doing the work resentfully.
No.
Right? "Oh, I have to do this work now. Like, I know relationships are hard, but I'm going to chug along."
Right.
No, they have to know the why behind
Right.
the work they're doing.
They also have to want it.
Yeah.
You can't force someone to do it.
Yeah. It's very true. You can't force anybody to do anything at all.
So does everyone want to be in a relationship right now? No, I mean, relationships are very wonderful. I think the part of just like, you know, when you're in a supportive partnership, like having that, like, you know, ride or die person that's just there is like, there's something so nice about that. And like that you can also do that for them too. Like, I mean, at the beginning of my relationship, I maybe take this for granted now. I was like, it's like I'm having a sleepover with my best friend every night. Like, this is so fun.
Yeah.
You know, there is an element of that side. I mean, obviously the love that you share and give to one another that makes all of this worth it. But again, we're just trying to like level set. It's not like a walk in the park necessarily, even in the healthiest relationship.
Yes, totally. I love hearing like your side of how you view relationships, because one thing I want to just keep myself in check is that I feel like every relationship does make me a little bit more jaded. And I still see like the first love I ever had was like such pure love. I'm pretty sure I will never feel that way about anybody ever again. And I do hold on to that feeling. But every relationship I've had since, it gets more and more realistic. A good thing, right?
Yeah.
Because I know what to expect, but also a little bit daunting because you're like, okay, I know this is the honeymoon period. Like, I'm like, all right, I know this is the honeymoon period. I know this is going to pass. When's going to get boring? You know, I can predict some of this stuff now without the pureness of that love in the beginning. So it's nice to hear like your feelings about relationships in this like really positive light, because it's a reminder for myself and anybody out there who feels like they've been a little beaten down by relationships.
Yeah.
Not every relationship has to feel that way. You don't have to bring it in.
I think the definition of a relationship changes with each person. Like when I was like in a relationship with other people, I thought that was like what a relationship was like. And then in this current one, I'm like, oh, that wasn't even a relationship. Like when I look at it, but it was a relationship. I need to remember it. It was the relationship that was serving me at that time of my life.
For sure.
At this stage of my life, I'm looking for something different. And like, while, yeah, your memories are blissful with your high school sweetheart, it's a different relationship that's serving the 40-year-old version of UA, right?
Yeah, it's true. I do meet up with him sometimes, and I don't feel the same way.
Yeah.
So I know. I know it's in the past.
That's true. You're still in contact. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
You're like, nope, 18-year-olds, that's it.
I know. We love reminiscing about that time, but then we look at each other and we're like, no, this would never work out. It's fun talking about relationships because it's good to be real and it needs to be normalized, and also just get out of the comparison game. Your friends are going to have different relationships than you. Everyone's going to edit what they're willing to share about the relationship with you. Just no need to compare your relationship to other people's relationships. Just get you to a place where you know how to ask for what you want.
I guess like to leave on a positive note too of like what is so special about relationships? What makes all this worthwhile? I guess from your perspective, UA, being in a newer relationship, how many months in are you at this point? Like a little over 6?
6, yeah.
Okay,
just about 6.
So that's a solid, still in the honeymoon phase here.
Solid honeymoon period. I think the best part for me about relationship is having someone else who sees sides of you that you can't see for yourself. Like having that person who is like, sees your potential, who It's just like, how come you don't see this side of you? Like, how come you don't see how amazing
Yeah.
you are? It's so
Yeah.
great to have a support like that, like the really authentic cheerleader by your side.
100%. I mean, I think too, it's like we said, relationships are more inherently boring. I think there's a difference between being bored and boring.
Yes.
Like when I think of boring, there's no like highs and lows and like what's going to happen next. You know, this person's coming back and like
Yes.
every day I'm going to see my partner at 6 o'clock when he comes through the door. But there's something about the fact, at least for me, I'll speak to my relationship 3 years in, I still feel like I can talk all day and all night with my partner. Like we never run out of things to talk about. And I think that's something that I hold dearly, that I'm like, I feel energized and excited still about the person I'm with. And yeah, like I 100% agree with everything you said too about, seeing the best in your partner, but also just knowing there's someone that cares about you. And like
Yes.
in a way that, I mean, obviously your family and all that, but it's like a different way that like you'll even get from friendship.
Yes.
I think that's just the reality.
Yes. It's like your adopted family in some ways. What other opportunity do you have to bring a stranger into your life
No.
to this extent, at this intensity? So it is quite special to think about it. I look at my parents and I'm like, wow, they were mere strangers and now they're closer than family. Like they've
Yeah.
spent all this time with each other. They are literally like family, but not by blood. How incredible is that? Like the universe just put these two people together and was like, here, now you're going to get really acquainted with each other.
It really is amazing. Like even 3 years in with my current partner, like I've only known him 3 years of my life, but I feel like I know him better than anyone else. Like that's
Yes.
amazing when you think about it.
Yes.
Like sometimes it drives me crazy when he's like, like nitpicking certain things. He's like, it's because I care about you or I'm watching you. Like I'm here. I'm not like, there was an adjustment period of someone being, I was like, oh, my other partners didn't do some of this stuff. And I'm like, they were never around as much, right? Like I didn't have a life with them.
And that's kind of like the other beautiful part of being in a relationship is that the idiosyncrasies. You know these things about your partner that nobody else knows. That's incredible. Like my man friend right now, there are certain things that have annoyed previous partners about me that I bring up to him. I'm like, does this annoy you? He's like, no, because you only do it with me, or only I get to see the side of you. That's so special.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? This doesn't bother you? He's like, no, that's so special because nobody else gets to see the side.
But I think that's a sign that you've met someone that's worthwhile, right? It's like when someone appreciates your quirks and the things about you that others might not, right?
Right. Yes. And hopefully they're the right quirks to appreciate.
Yeah.
Don't enable me with the bad quirks.
So I guess to close this out, like maybe we'll go back to the original question and takeaways, but are relationships inherently hard or should they be easy? I think I'm still on the camp that like it's going to bring shit up for you. It's going to be hard to cooperate with someone, and that's okay. Hard is not a bad thing. There's a difference too, I think, about like someone noticing you and taking notice and helping you versus criticizing you. Like they're all like thin lines, but like there's a big difference of, like how things will come up for you and what relationships do in the long haul. But I think that's also what makes them so wonderful too.
Relationships are hard, but choosing your partner should be easy. That shouldn't be a big debate inside your mind. Otherwise, you're probably not with the right person.
No, I like that a lot. Just because it's hard sometimes, it doesn't mean that it's not easy other times too.
Yes.
Like sometimes it can feel the most blissful, easy, best thing. And I think also it's like, where is the hard coming from? Is it hard because you're not working together, or is it hard because it's bringing up your unresolved shit that really needs to get healed anyways?
Yep. And most likely it's the latter.
Exactly.
We've learned.
Yes. Well, make sure you get on the Meeting IRL Masterclass. Go sign up now if you haven't already. Spots are limited. And if you meet someone amazing, you could do all the relationship things. Do we sell you or what?
Totally sold. You know
People
what
are
we'll
like,
sell
no.
you is listen to this episode because it's our 500th episode, and then listen to our first episode ever. Just
Oh,
listen to them back to back and just appreciate how much we've matured and deepened our understanding of
oh my
relationships.
goodness.
I think you will be impressed, but also sold that we've learned shit. Okay, we've learned shit in these 500
We
episodes.
were different people, and we will link that episode in the show notes with another
Yes.
episode that I'm thinking of around healthy relationships we do with Vienna Ferreting, Connor
Oh,
Beaton. We'll
yes.
link
That's a
that
good
one
one.
also if you want more into the world of relationships. And also we'll link information on our Meeting IRL masterclass.
All right. The masterclass is only going to be open until June 5th. Just remember that date. You have until June 5th to sign up. And if you have any questions about it, you can always email us, hello@dateablepodcast.com. You can DM us on Instagram @dateablepodcast. And if you really want to reach us urgently, you can give us a rating and review in Apple
Yes.
Podcasts, 5 stars. And in the body of your review, you can say whatever you want, but just make it nice, okay? Make it kind, or ask us a question about the masterclass if you like, or ask us a question about your dating life. We're happy to answer those in our Brunch Talk series.
And if you are a Spotify listener, or maybe you have Apple and Spotify, head over there because we're going to do something fun where we put a poll after this episode.
Okay, we're going to wrap up this episode.
Stay dateable.
The Dateable Podcast is part of the Frolic Media Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts. You can follow us on Instagram @dateablepodcast and visit dateablepodcast.com for access to all the episodes and our premium programs. Also, make sure to subscribe today if you haven't already on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform so you are the first to get all the latest episodes. And most importantly, stay dateable.
Say goodbye to your credit card rewards. Greedy corporate mega stores, led by Walmart and Target, are pushing for a law in Congress to take away your hard-earned cash back and travel points to line their pockets. The Durbin-Marshall credit card bill would enact harmful credit card routing mandates that would end credit card rewards as we know it. If you love your credit card rewards, tell your lawmakers, hands off my rewards. Tell them to oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill.